In April 2019, a disaster occurred as one of the greatest buildings in Europe was swamped by flames, and the blazes scorched everything, leaving nothing behind except destroyed ruins. You might have already guessed what we are talking about. The fire at the Paris Notre Dame Cathedral left France and the entire world heartbroken. But when archaeologists investigated the damage inflicted by the fire, they came across some unique things that had been hidden beneath the cathedral for centuries. And these discoveries reveal some shocking truths about history. So, what have the archaeologists discovered? And what do these discoveries reveal? Hello, and welcome back to the Abandoned Archaeologist, the channel to learn all about ancient archaeological findings. Today we will discuss the discovery of ancient mummies buried under Notre Dame. But before we begin, to get your attention, we have a question you can answer at the end of the video. Notre Dame de Paris is thought to be the best example of a... So write down your answer in the comment section and see if you got it right. Here we begin. Notre Dame de Paris, also known as Notre Dame Cathedral, is a Parisian cathedral church. It is the most well-known Gothic cathedral of the Middle Ages, notable for its size, antiquity, and architectural interest. Notre Dame is located at the eastern end of the Ile-de-la-Cité and was constructed on the ruins of two previous churches, which were preceded by a Gallo-Roman temple dedicated to Jupiter. The cathedral was conceived around 1160 by Maurice de Sully, Bishop of Paris, who envisioned combining the ruins of the two earlier basilicas into a larger structure. Pope Alexander III laid the foundation stone in 1163, and the high altar was consecrated in 1189. By 1250, the choir, western facade, and nave had been completed, and porches, chapels, and other embellishments had been added over the next 100 years. The Notre Dame Cathedral comprises a choir and an apse, a short transept, and a nave flanked by double aisles and square chapels. Its central spire was added during restoration in the 19th century, replacing the original, which had been completely removed due to instability in the 18th century. The cathedral's plan is 427 by 157 feet, that's 130 by 48 meters, and the roof is 115 feet, or 35 meters high. The western facade is crowned by two massive early Gothic towers, between 1210 to 1250, which are divided into 3 stories and have doors adorned with fine early Gothic carvings and surmounted by a row of figures of Old Testament kings. The two towers stand 223 feet, or 68 meters tall. The spires that were supposed to crown them were never built. The cathedral's east and apse has large clerestory windows, added between 1235 and 1270. It is supported by single-arch flying buttresses in the more daring Rayonnant Gothic style, particularly notable for their boldness and grace. Only the cathedral's 3 great rose windows have 13th century glass. Throughout the centuries, Notre Dame Cathedral has been damaged and deteriorated. After the French Revolution, Napoleon saved it from destruction by crowning himself Emperor of France in the cathedral in 1804. In the mid-19th century, the French architect Eugène-Emmanuel Viollet-le-Duc restored Notre Dame extensively. The renovations were said to be inspired by the popularity of Victor Hugo's historical novel Notre Dame de Paris, 1831, in which the cathedral is the setting. Unfortunately, a fire broke out in the cathedral's attic during a restoration campaign in 2019, destroying most of the roof, Viollet-le 19th century Duc's spire, and some rib vaulting. Notre Dame's uncovered tombs start to reveal their secrets. 2 lead sarcophaguses, discovered buried beneath the nave of Notre Dame Cathedral, in an extraordinary and emotional discovery, have begun to reveal their secrets, French scientists announced on Friday. According to experts, the first contains the remains of a high priest who died in 1710, after what appeared to be a sedentary life. The second occupant has yet to be identified, and may never be, but is thought to be a young, wealthy, and privileged noble from the 14th century. The tombs were discovered as part of a cache of statues, sculptures, and fragments of the cathedral's original 13th century rood screen buried beneath the floor of the cathedral's transept crossing, which was destroyed by fire in April 2019. The burial sites were described as being of remarkable scientific quality. They were discovered following a precautionary dig beneath the floor, where heavy scaffolding is set to be erected to install the cathedral's new spire. While most of the treasures were discovered only 20 centimeter or 8 inches beneath the cathedral floor, a body-shaped lead sarcophagus was discovered 1 meter beneath the floor. When it was opened by specialists in Toulouse, it was discovered to contain the remains of a man, probably in his 30s, whom researchers have dubbed Le Cavalier because his pelvic bones indicate he was an experienced horseman. The coffin, which was molded around the body shape, had no plaque, and holes in the lead around the head indicate that the remains had been exposed to air and severe deterioration. Scientists continue to examine fragments of cloth and plant material discovered inside the coffin and believe he was embalmed, a rare practice in the Middle Ages, and was buried with a flower crown. The remains of Antoine de la Porte, the canon of Notre Dame Cathedral, who died on Christmas Eve 1710 at the age of 83, were confirmed by a brass plaque on the second lead sarcophagus, which was also exposed to air and water infiltration from the historic flooding of the Seine in 1910. The two men were important in their respective eras to be buried in such prestigious tombs at the heart of the cathedral, according to Eric Crebazy, a professor of biological anthropology at the University of Toulouse III, who oversaw the cutting and opening of the coffins. At the time of his death, the unknown Cavalier would have been a member of the elite and would have been buried at the foot of the large cross on the now destroyed rood screen, an ornate partition between the chancel and the nave that separated the clergy and choir from the congregation. During the Counter-Reformation in the 16th and 17th centuries, most rood screens were removed from Catholic churches in France. Crebazy told journalists that the young man died from a chronic disease that had destroyed most of his teeth. He would have had a difficult death. The deceased aristocrat also had a skull deformation caused by wearing a headdress or headband as a baby. If the date of his death was around the second half of the 16th century or early 17th century, we might be able to identify him in the death register that we have, said Christopher Besnier, who led the scientific team for the dig carried out by France's National Archaeological Institute, INRAP, at a press conference. However, if it's earlier, we'll probably never know who he was. Unlike the Cavalier, de la Porte had extraordinarily good teeth. According to Crebazy, they were impressive for his age. We rarely see this, but he cleaned and cared for his teeth. De la Porte was wealthy and influential, and he not only commissioned several works of art that are now housed in the Louvre, including a painting by Jean Jouvenet titled The Mass of Canon Antoine de la Porte, but he also paid 10,000 livres, a small fortune at the time, for the renovation of Notre Dame Cathedral's choir. In addition, a portion of the destroyed roof screen was used to build his tomb. After a fire nearly destroyed the 850-year-old cathedral, one of Paris's most symbolic and visited monuments, in April 2019, President Emmanuel Macron promised it would be rebuilt and ready for Mass in 5 years. Between February and April, the INRAP team was called to perform a preventive dig beneath a section of the cathedral floor before a 30-meter-high, 600-ton scaffold was built to reconstruct the monument spire. The archaeologists were given a strict time frame and only a specific excavation area. Dominique Garcia, president of INRAP, reiterated that the human remains were not archaeological objects and would be treated with respect from beginning to end of the investigation, before being returned to Paris for the Culture Ministry to decide what to do with them. What do you think of the discovery of ancient mummies buried under Notre Dame? Comment below, and the answer to our question is French Gothic architecture. Subscribe for more such videos.